Gareth from bedigital here. Thank you for downloading the show. We have a brilliant guest this month. Really enjoyed interviewing this guy. He is a very driven individual. He worked in investment banking for a number of years, and then following a life-changing holiday to Italy, he decided to pursue his passion, which is cookery. He left his career, he set up a business. It was very traditional startup, sort of hands-on in the early days, and they went on Dragon's Den and they grew it, and they're in a position now whereby they got 500 staff operating out of a single site in Shepherd's Bush. They've got a really good culture based around sustainability, the environment, and just hard work, and it really is an inspiring story for any would-be entrepreneur. We covered everything from the Dragon's Den experience through to the sustainability stuff, talent acquisition, culture, and everything in between. He's the CEO of Gousto, Timo Boldt. So, thank you for agreeing to do this, Timo. It's much appreciated. Apologies, I was a little bit late. I couldn't find the building, but this is a bit of a jungle around here with all the shops and things. But we got there in the end, and it's great to come in. And obviously, I've done a lot of research into your company, and I actually remember you from 6 years ago on Dragon's Den. I don't think you've got an investment on that occasion, but I think your story since has been quite exponential in terms of your growth and in terms of the market share you gained and the influence you've had on the UK, on your sector. So you actually carved out your own sort of area alongside one or two other companies, but I mean it's certainly been an interesting journey from what I can see. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and from the early days and how you got to the point of setting up Gousto, just that sort of initial journey that you went on to setting up the company.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. Really enjoying this. I'm Timo. I founded Gousto in 2012. Before, and as you maybe be able to tell, I'm German. I grew up in Berlin. And I lived in the US. I graduated from high school in California, and my family in California have always massively inspired me. Timo, start a food business, don't stay in finance and banking, follow your passion for entrepreneurship. So after a couple of years in finance, as one did pre-2008, I left investment banking, joined a hedge fund, and then in 2012 followed my passion for food. Back then I traveled to Italy, did a cooking class with a bunch of mates, and with my flatmate had the idea of Gousto. So very humble beginnings. We launched this in my room, or our flat. We went to Borough Market to source the ingredients ourselves. We hand delivered to London and Oxford, which was hugely painful. I gave customers my personal phone number, and they would ring up until midnight. It was good fun, really good fun. And I think, looking back, I think Rothschild kind of investment banking gave me this analytical toolbox, understanding, finance and how companies work and how industries work and what strategy means. And then going into a hedge fund, I kind of learned a lot about meeting CEOs and leadership teams and listening to their vision of the world, and all of a sudden I had access to companies' boards and company presentations, and it was tremendously fun getting this exposure at a relatively young age. And the fund was super entrepreneurial. They gave me tons of responsibility to run the London office, a small team, but it felt like it prepared me really, really well for then setting up Gousto. And coming from a very high salary to no salary is hugely motivating. I moved back into student accommodation just to reduce fixed cost. Mm-hmm. So my wife did a PhD in Oxford. We moved into a 1-bedroom flat in student accommodation in Oxford, which was really fun, tiny bed. and I commuted into London every single day, 7 a.m., 9 p.m. back. It was the grind, but it was fun. And since then, obviously, the world has changed massively. I used to be the founder, now I'm the CEO. The common denominator has been this focus and belief that this is all about people. The vision has never changed. The vision has always been be the most loved way to eat dinner. So total obsession about how do we really delight customers every single week. If we obsess about our team and we obsess about customers, good things will happen. And that's roughly what kind of I think led to the success then over the last 7 years.
Absolutely. So it's quite a common entrepreneur story when you have this really high-flying career and you've decided to essentially jack it all in to go on your own journey. How was that received by your family and your immediate social network?
I think my family and wife and closest friends said, "Go for it, amazing. Just if it doesn't work, fantastic. You learn how to cook, have fun." And I think if you then look at colleagues and the wider network, I think people who work in banking on average are a bit more conservative.
Yeah.
So a lot of people didn't get this at the beginning. I think 4, 5, 6 people invested over time. 2 of them half a year ago, so not at the very beginning, but after 7 years. But to be honest, I didn't care much. Right? I was so focused on getting this done and fully committed, and I loved the idea, and I loved working in food and cooking all day myself, and so I didn't care that much.
So you had that that gut feeling that it was the right path for you then, yeah?
Totally.
At what point, when was the eureka moment? When did you sort of go, yeah, this is it, this is what I want to do? Can you pin it down to one time?
Yeah, I think when we went to Italy, and we were 13 guys going to Italy, 2 Italians, amazing food, did a food class, cooking class, lots of tastings. I just felt hugely inspired, and I had a small startup at university, and so I always dreamed about starting a business. Mm-hmm. And then I'm so passionate about food, and I really love food, and I think that's kind of then morphed into this moment in Italy when I decided, well, let's just go for it. So I didn't feel like the downside is concerning. I didn't care about money at all back then. Didn't have a mortgage, didn't have a kid. That's changed. So yeah.
So one thing I heard you talk about in the early days was that you were trying to replicate a model that was already present, and you brought Sweden up as being an example. That's why I mentioned it earlier. Research, yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how you saw the market developing in Sweden, and how you would, what your mindset was around taking that or seeing the potential in that to emerge in the UK?
So weirdly, I wasn't aware of the Swedish model until 6 months after I launched, or maybe 3 months after I launched. But what I was aware of was this gorgeous Berlin-based company that was selling recipes in store. So you walked in, you saw 20 stations, 20 tables, and it looked absolutely gorgeous. You walked there, you touched the produce, you could see gorgeous photography, and you would just pick up whatever you liked and then go home and cook it. And so for the first couple of weeks, I literally looked at high street leases, thinking, could I build a beautiful shop where people walk in? And then I quite quickly looked at, do I want to take a £1 million lease over 5 years? That's crazy. And then I looked at online convenience jumping in size, and the high street being in a lot of pain, and most likely being in even more pain for the next 50 years. So I kind of quite quickly concluded might not be the best thing. So I then shifted to online, and then I stumbled upon the Swedish guys who've done tremendously well with a very basic proposition tailored at families, but building a huge business with a hugely simple product.
Yeah. Simplicity is always the way when it comes to business normally, isn't it?
Normally it is. We went the opposite way. We added so much complexity over time, but initially the Swedish guys were quite inspiring, and they offered, I think, £1.5 million after 12 to 18 months. We didn't take the investment, but it gave us access. They invited us, they showed us the factory, we tasted their recipes. It was hugely inspiring. They had a proper team, a proper office, which we didn't have. So all of a sudden you could see where this could be heading. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So 2012 was quite a significant year for some reason in the curated meal preparation space. Why is that then?
That's
because HelloFresh set up that year as well. So why did it happen in 2012? I
have literally no idea. I think I actually know Ollie Zamra and the Rocket guys who funded HelloFresh, but I wasn't aware at all of them launching a meal kit service. So one day, James, my co-founder, he pulled out the newspaper and we saw HelloFresh launch. And we were like super scared for a couple of days, funded by Rocket Internet, this huge, gigantic fund pumping millions in, whereas like we put our life savings in, but we didn't have any investment. And then I think after the initial shock, we realized this is actually quite fantastic. Like other people are doing this. The timing looked totally bizarre. But I guess in hindsight, we then motivated us to think, this is actually really good news. It's fine.
Yeah.
We just got to execute better than them. It's
absolutely. Fine. Well, I suppose you're trying to sell a new concept. So if somebody else is helping you sell that concept, then surely that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Competition isn't always a bad thing, is it?
Yeah, and creating category awareness is so expensive. So we actually have benefited hugely.
That's where you come in, I suppose. So yeah. But I think it's always good to have a bit of healthy competition. Have any other new players entered the market since who are doing sort of interesting things that you guys are keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, it's really bizarre. Like over the last 7 years, we have seen 25 companies enter and 20 exit the market because the barriers to entry are really low. Like any mom and dad can set up this model from their living room, but then scaling it is super difficult. You need, so many different teams, amazing marketing, PR, brand, technology, factory, supply chain, food safety, everything.
Yeah.
So we've seen a lot of people enter and then exit. Most bizarrely, the Swedish guys launched a UK company that operated in the same building we operated in, but like 4 floors above us. So they looked down on us and they wouldn't know how many boxes we would send because we picked them in our office. And it just felt absolutely weird. Apparently the CEO lived in the building and they used their office or her flat. But it was super daunting. We felt like this was a well-orchestrated attack on us, but it was just serendipity.
It was completely coincidence.
Completely random,
Wow.
And she then later, they had to shut down the London operation. She then later did some freelance work for Gousto. It's bizarre.
It's funny how things turn out, isn't it? So you set up in 2012. You were on Dragon's Den a year later. Like I said at the beginning, I do remember that vaguely, and when I rewatched it recently, I thought you guys gave a really good pitch, that you were quite unlucky to not get an investment at the end of that. What did you learn from that experience?
What did I learn? I mean, first of all, we received 2 offers. They only showed one in the TV show, which really annoyed us. And then the one we received...
Why was that then?
I have no idea. It's bizarre.
Who was the other offer from?
I'm supposed to not tell.
Oh, okay.
You sign like all those legal papers, and then the team keeps on telling you like, don't mention it. But at the end of the day, we received one offer shown on air, and but we had a counter offer from new shareholders, and the valuation was up here, and their valuation was here. On the show, we handed over the term sheet, and they looked at it, they read it on the show, and they said, "Wow, well done."
This is a great offer. That, didn't he?
So. So in the end, they didn't want to match, and for us, the publicity was fantastic. So to me, the key learning is you have to hustle, right? When you start a business, I mean, I hand delivered to 100, 200 journalists just to get like some attention, and Dragon's Den was one of 20 things that happened, but it looked like the one big thing we did, but we tried so many other things. And I think it's all about the energy you put in, the hustle, the selling, and that's really, really crucial.
So did you see from that point sort of onwards that there was more interest in what you were doing, there was more interest from potential investors?
Yeah, I think it meant that we had a couple of BBC articles. Dragon's Den was covered pretty widely. We saw website traffic go through the roof. We had one server, which obviously broke down despite us preparing for this. So it was good fun, lots of learnings. Yeah.
So if you were to go through the journey of setting up Gousto, if you could have 2012 all over again, and you get into where we are now, what would you do differently?
I don't know if I would do anything differently, if I'm honest. I think in hindsight we kind of stumbled upon something that works. I would probably do it 80% faster. If you take into account all the learnings, you would shortcut so many things from the obsession about the leadership team and then the management team and then talent. Mm-hmm. Last year we cut plastic by 50%. That's a phenomenal team achievement, meaning we take 238 million plastic straws out of the system. Mm-hmm. But again, this has taken us 18 months and 3,200 hours of the team's time. Now that we've done it, we could probably do it in 1,000 hours. Yeah. I wouldn't do it differently. I would just do it faster.
You've definitely got an ethical sort of environmental sort of thing going on with the business. I think that's part of your brand, isn't it? Because I think I did see an interview you did with Sky a couple of years back, and I watched it yesterday, but it was from a couple of years back, and I think he was talking about how industry average in terms of wastage was about 20%. You were operating at 1 or 2%, and that was a while ago. So where does that come from? Where does that environmental sort of responsibility come from? Is that from yourself, or is that from just the culture you've built in the organization?
It's both. I have this massive belief that life is short and you somehow have to focus on impact. I do stuff like donating X% of my salary to various charities and things. And so back then in 2012, Gousto was born out of this belief that food waste is a huge issue. And if you could solve food waste, it's not only good for the environment, it's great for customers because they stop wasting food and they save money, but it's also good for us from a business perspective because we have better margins. So we felt like this is win-win-win. If we could find a way to really cut back on food waste, amazing. So we figured this out somehow. And we reduced it literally to 0.something%, and that's always been an amazing part of the business model. It meant in the early days that it took us like 10 days to deliver because we didn't want to have any food in stock. Yeah, as opposed to all the supermarkets, and then wasting 60% of salad. And over time, we managed to cut it down.
They waste then? Is that typically what supermarkets waste around that?
I believe the average figure when you Google is 40%, of which 20% is at household level, 20% in the supply chain. But if you take salads, for example, salads are like the worst ever ingredient. Supermarkets are wasting 66% of salads because you've got 10,000 supermarkets. You have to push salads into all of them, and then after 2 days they look not so fresh anymore, so you take them off the shelf to drive sales. It's just absolutely awful practice. Whereas what we do is in real time I watch how many orders we have, and then last minute we kind of order as many salads as we need. We obviously work really closely with farmers, so we constantly tell them kind of what orders we expect, and our forecasting is pretty accurate. But this way we don't have any salads. If I need 100 salads, we'll buy 100. If one of them looks bad, we'll get another one. We'll get a backup salad last minute. But all of a sudden, it's completely changing the dynamics of your margin structure, and whilst you do so much good for the environment.
Absolutely, I think food waste is awful, especially around meat wastage, which is a particularly less ethical, isn't
horrible,
it? Yeah. On that note, then, what do you think about the sort of rise of veganism and plant-based eating? What's your take on that, and what are you doing to react to that trend? I don't know if it is a trend. Maybe it's an evolution. I don't know. But what are you doing around that at the moment?
Yeah, it's a really funny one. We've predicted this since 2012 more or less, and we've always had slightly better vegetarian offering than anyone else. Simply, in the early days, my wife was vegetarian, and we had 12 customers, and So for like very personal reasons, we always were like massively aware of kind of vegetarian options, and this eventually becoming a trend and bigger. And now we're really seeing this pick up in the numbers. I think we have record numbers of veggie meals as percentage of the menu offered to customers. So the January menu is sensational. You've got every week you've got 11 veggie options. You've got 5 vegan dishes on the menu this week. So that's really pushing the boundaries and offering the best possible solution. We've got vegan burgers. I cooked the vegan Christmas burger, was sensational. So I feel like, you know, this is in the early days, but the trend is huge, and this is an evolution. I think if you fast forward by 10 years, wow, this will be huge. And I mean, every single person you nowadays talk to, everyone is talking about cutting back on red meat consumption, being more mindful about eating meat. So it's going to stay, and it's going to accelerate, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. So let's talk about technology then. So you've obviously secured a round of funding recently, and I think you come out publicly and said you're going to be putting a lot of that into hiring tech talent and also investing it into technology as well. Talk us through your plans and your roadmap in terms of what you want to achieve with that investment.
Yeah, Gousto is a data company that loves food. We are food obsessed, but ultimately the DNA is we are a tech data company. So when we raised funding, we didn't have to take on more money, but given how big this opportunity is and how big our ambition is for the next 10 years, we felt like it made sense to accelerate certain technology investment. So the plan is to literally double the technology team this year and then to triple it over the next 2.5 years. So we're hiring hundreds of developers, data scientists, really smart people, and then applying technology to 2 main kind of problems. One is supply chain, both from a forecasting point, from a food waste point, from an efficiency point. How do you cut down on vans on the street, everything. And then secondly, for you as a customer, what more can we do to really delight you and get you excited every single week? You should never see what Emily is eating or what I'm eating. You should see exactly what you love to eat, nothing else. That might mean you see 5 meals whilst you're on a bus, and it might mean you see 50 meals whilst you watch Netflix. So even like one person should see different menus depending on what browser they're on or what time of the day.
Right, okay.
So that level of complexity requires huge investment into algorithms, forecasting algorithms, personalization. So the team is pretty much building the exact same 2 algorithms Netflix is using, very similar infrastructure, and I'm really proud what they've built. This gives us huge differentiation. So Gousto today offers 40-50 recipes. The closest competitor is offering, I don't know, like 20-18. We offer the shortest lead time, the lowest price point, so we charge from $2.98, including free delivery across all of the UK per person. So you have all those like massive benefits that you can only unlock using technology, and I think that's the moat around the castle. What really makes this business amazing for customers, but also defendable. So I'm quite positive about the future and us investing a lot more, whilst we are already strongly differentiated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely are. But I do suppose, though, that in a very subtle way, and maybe not in your sort of viewpoint, but I would think that companies like Uber Eats, Uber Eats specifically, and Deliveroo, and maybe even Just Eat would technically be competitors of yours, wouldn't they? Because they are essentially selling the same, not the same service, but the same concept in a different way. Does that make sense? Is that because these are technology-driven companies as well, aren't they?
They are. I think they focus on a very specific use case. So, like if you take the examples you mentioned, yes, they're focusing to some extent on personalization, i.e., people should see different things, but they have never ever invested any time into kind of the operational capabilities we're building around supply chain, food waste, routing vans, all this stuff. That's so unique to Gousto. It's totally different. And also you have to remember, they're not touching food, right? What we do is we build algorithms that determine what people most likely want to eat, and then we get chefs to produce those meals. So we really focus on the innovation, the ideation, the production, whereas product is totally not part of their core expertise, given that they are a matchmaker between a customer and a restaurant. So there are like huge differences, I think, in capabilities and focus. And both of them still need to prove that this makes any sense economically. It's a tough market. So I think there are lots of challenges they still face. And the market is pretty different. I think there's space for them, there's space for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. Okay, so what other technology companies are you inspired by? You mentioned Netflix there. Are there any others who you look at their sort of, the technology ecosystem within the company and their website and things like that, and the user experience? Do you get inspired by any other sort of companies?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I read every book you can imagine. I always aim to read 50 books per year, and I think one of the key themes for me is overnight success takes 10, sometimes 20, 30 years. So I really admire people who do things for the long run and who have conviction and commitment to deliver against this. If you take Elon Musk, I mean, wow, the guy is not only the biggest visionary, but what really sets him apart is the ability to execute relentlessly. Yeah. This is what makes this special. There are lots of people who have the same idea, but the execution and the commitment to do this like for 10 years in a grinding way is absolutely remarkable. So I love that in people. If you look at DeepMind, they've done this for not like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, for a long time, and they'll go on for the next 10, 20 years doing the same. Solving hugely complex problems in a very specific domain, and thereby creating compounding benefits for humanity eventually. So there are lots of companies I love learning from. Netflix is a great example. 5, 6, 7 years ago, Netflix could have built and used the platform capabilities they've had to do different things. They could have done video gaming and all kinds of things, but instead they focused and they went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think we are on a very similar strategy. If you look at the competitive landscape in meal kits and grocery, everyone has gone for let's conquer land, like let's go to the US, let's launch here, let's do this. We have gone like super deep, building more and more technology capabilities to delight customers at a whole new level. And I think that's what's paying off today. Gousto is the market leader in this market, and I think will like totally dominate the market, not because I think it's great to dominate the market, simply because we are so focused and we'll really delight customers every single week. I think if you go into 10 countries too soon, you mess this up big times because the customer satisfaction isn't there. So
what countries are you operating in right now?
Just the UK.
That's it then, is it? And
for the next couple of years.
That's
eventually maybe we'll expand.
Maybe Germany. It's a big market.
Market. But I mean, for me, this is all about customers. We have close to 70% net promoter score. That's kind of the proxy for customer satisfaction. That's close to Apple. I mean, this is the secret sauce why we're growing the way we're growing and why we're doubling this business year after year. So to me, the question is, how do we get this from 70 to 85? How do we really make this even better and push the boundaries of what's possible? Because this way, this will play out in a similar way as Netflix has played out. If you look at Netflix, I mean, I signed up to Netflix 4 times because I used the free discount. I thought this is weird. I didn't have a smartphone when they launched. This made no sense. There was buffering. I don't know if you remember buffering.
Yeah, of course.
It was wait 5 minutes and then you could watch the first 10 minutes and buff it again. And today, obviously, everyone has Netflix.
Yeah.
But people forget how long this has taken. And I'm pretty sure this will play out in a similar way.
Well, I got a couple of favourite business stories, but the blockbuster response to the emergence of Netflix was quite a good business story, quite sort of kind of a bit of a lesson to businesses to sort of be wary of innovative new companies, I suppose. So yeah, I think this made some really good points. But just very quickly on technology as well. Just moving on to the talent side, we talked in the initial preamble about the decision to remain in London in Shepherd's Bush, and you've got great offices here. Can you talk us through loosely what that, how you arrived at that decision and why you sort of see this as the space whereby you're going to grow the business?
Yeah, so we've got 2 offices. We've got one in Spalding where we have a big fulfillment center, factory, everything, and then we've got London where we have a few hundred people working here. And we looked at, as any company that's growing fast, we naturally looked at should we open an office in Manchester or Birmingham or Cardiff, just because we're growing so fast. Is the market large enough to support this growth? And then we concluded, like, London is just the most amazing place. The density of talent is off the chart. The diversity we have, despite some of the political noise out there, it's just a phenomenal place. So if you look at the depth of talent in AI and technology, it's phenomenal. So we decided to stay here. It's much better for motivation. To me, it's all about how engaged is the team, how motivated are they, how passionate are they, do they love what they do every single day, do they go the extra mile, do they dig deep, and I think that's a lot easier if you are in 1 or 2 sites than 5 sites or 5 countries. It becomes exponentially hard. So if possible, we'll stay here for as long as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so moving on to the future then. What are your plans for 2020? Any exciting innovations or anything, any announcements or anything that you're working on right now which you're quite excited about that you're going to release in the new year?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest announcement is that we solved our plastic pledge. We pledged that by the end of 2019 we would solve to reduce plastic by 50%. If you look at all the supermarkets pledging to take 1% out over like 5 years, that's ridiculous. We literally said, look, let's push the boundaries. What's like the biggest thing we can do? We came up with this 50% idea. We put our smartest people on it. They've worked for 12 months on this, spending thousands of hours on it. And they've actually delivered on it, so which means 100 tons of plastic are taken out. We're now this close after 4,000 customer tests to launch a UK first packaging innovation, which will take another 75 tons of plastic out of the boxes. It's a new kind of novel way to insulate fresh food when you ship it around the UK. So that's a big launch, hopefully happening in the next couple of weeks, month.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. Well, that sounds really exciting, and I think the ethical sort of element to your business is one of the most intriguing and endearing things about Gousto, for sure. My final question, Timo, and I've been really sort of interested in the things you've said here. But my final question is just with the listeners in mind. I think. You've obviously been on this journey, you've followed your passion, you've grown a really successful business. What advice would you give to your 21-year-old self, or somebody who is wanting to replicate your success, who wants to follow their passion and grow a technology-driven business? What advice would you give to that person?
The biggest lesson for me has been this whole, you gotta manage yourself before you lead other people. And then this really is about managing other people. So it's all about talent and inspiring people to come onto the journey. So you have to be totally sold. You got to be passionate about this. Don't do it because you think you make money, and then inspire other people and obsess about their happiness and their learning and their growth, and become, a servant leader ultimately. If they're happy, you're happy. If they're successful, you're succeeding. It's super simple. And I think there's a lot of like founder cult out there, but ultimately this is all about the team. It's the team cult. And to me, that's I think by far biggest learning.
How many staff have you got right now?
We're 500. We're hiring another 300. So if you want to apply, please join us. We are hiring 300 people just this year. So we're going to 800 by the end of this year. Huge growth. But couldn't be more proud of the team. They're like the most passionate, fun, caring, kind, and intelligent people you can imagine.
What areas are you growing then?
Technology is growing by far the fastest, but I mean, to be fair, we're hiring in every single area.
Are we talking sort of AI, data analytics, development, those type of things then, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, both PhDs in machine learning or similar areas, math, analytics, but also AWS architecture, PHP, Python, Node, so all kinds of tech areas, I would say.
Okay, brilliant. Well, look, I'm mindful of time. I know you're a busy guy and you've got a busy schedule, so really appreciate you coming on the show. Wish you all the best. I love your angle. Love some of the things you talked about. And good luck for 2020. And I really hope you continue to push this ethical things. I think it's really good for UK business and the industry that you're operating within, where there's so much waste going on and things, so I think you're raising the bar, which I think hopefully will be a pioneer and will lead other sort of supermarkets and other people in the food space for sure. So
we'll work hard on that. Thanks so much for having me. This was super fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Timo.